A really critical concept to understand about social media is that social media is really only as good as its content. It's really all about the content. If you have quality content that you're sending out to those that follow you, then you're going to be successful. If you have junk, nobody wants to follow you. That's pretty simple. So, what are some of the ways you can get content? Because you simply can't make it all up yourself. You have to become a trusted source of good content. Very simply, you can just search the web. If you're looking for a particular term, you just put it into a Google search and see what's out there. If you use a search with the word news in it, you're going to find more news stories. Sometimes you want to call attention to a website itself, other times to stories. You can also use Facebook. So the fact that I like certain pages on Facebook means that I'm going to get material from that source. If that is information that I think would be of value to those that follow me on Twitter, then I'm going to tweet that. I also sign up for newsletters and I follow certain blogs. But the main thing I think you ought to look at is Google Alerts, and in the instructions you've already figured out how to set up your Google Alerts, but I want to show you how I do it. So here's my Gmail inbox, and as you can see, it's really pretty full of Google Alerts that are reflecting my primary search subject, which is community college. So if I look at, let's say, that one, I'm going to see Google Alerts has pulled up this story, which I'm not really interested in. This story, I don't necessarily want to do that. This story, though, looks interesting. So California Community Colleges update online education portal. So that fits both community colleges and educational technology. So those are kind of the two things that I do look at. Let's open this up in a new window. I always like to start with a new window when I start looking at a particular story to tweet. And the first thing I'll probably do is to look and see who the author is. Just highlight that, even use the word by in there, that's fine. And then right click and search for, I'm actually going to find this author's Twitter right here, and that's what I'm going to capture later, and I'll show you how to do that. Now, what I'm going to actually use for this particular story to manage how I use it as a tweet is I'm going to do a couple of things. First off, I'm going to look and I'm going to see the source. Well, the Sacramento Bee is a well-known newspaper. It's reputable. I don't worry about the content in terms of this as a source because it is a good source. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly read the story. This is a very short story and might be so short that I would consider not doing a tweet on it, but for the purposes of this I'll go ahead and do it. So it's high quality, it's a topic I'm interested in. Now I'm going to start looking for some other things. I've already got the author's Twitter, so I'm going to look here to see if there's other individuals that are identified, for example, that I might want to include in my Twitter. So here's California Community College Chancellor Bryce Harris. Again, I'm going to highlight that whole thing, right click, search, and here's stuff about Meet the Chancellor, so I know he's the Chancellor and all that. I'm just going to add Twitter to this because that is going to give me Dr. Bryce Harris's Twitter handle. Now, why am I doing this? Well, there's two reasons that come right up top. Number one is by including these reputable people, the author and the chancellor here, in my tweet, it kind of validates the quality of the content. But the other thing is when I add those individuals into my Twitter composition, then they're actually going to get a message that says they were mentioned in a tweet. So the likelihood is that perhaps they're going to retweet it or favorite it or do something that's going to be positive for me and helps me establish my reputation on social media. So that's all good. So again, going back to the story, it's a very simple story, so I don't think there's a whole lot to add to this, but I'm going to show you how to use Buffer. Now in Chrome, which is my browser, I've got this little Buffer button up here, and when I've installed it into the browser, what it lets me do is if I right click on the story, see this, buffer this page, and that's exactly what I want. And here is the story. So the story is California Community Colleges updates online educational portal. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a vertical separator, and this is just something I do, but I like to separate the headline, which is this, from the URL. Now one thing you'll see is that with Buffer, it actually shortens it. So this is the whole URL up here, and that's quite a bit. If you got 140 characters and you're using the whole thing, there's not much left. So Buffer automatically shortens it for you, which is really cool. Now how else can I shorten this? Well, I can shorten this to 2 letters by using CA to stand for California. So now I have quite a few characters left in this tweet, so this is good. Now what I'm going to do over behind the URL is I'm going to start adding some appropriate hashtags. And hashtags, as you probably know, are a way of identifying what this story is about, but it also is a way in Twitter where people can search for this particular term. So one of the terms I use is hashtag community college. Now I don't use community colleges, but community college. Now here's another trick I do. I would like to use the hashtag online education, but it's already up here in my headline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hashtag it right in the headline. Now I put in the hashtag and then I make this all one thing together. Okay, so that's hashtag online education. Now that didn't change the meaning of it. You don't want to do a whole lot of these hashtags in the headline because it just gets to be kind of junky if you do. And you don't really want to use that many hashtags anyway. But we've got one hashtag for online education. We've got one hashtag for community college. And I think I'll go ahead and put in hashtag EdTech, which is another one I use an awful lot. All right, now we are ready to look at what we're going to add in terms of these Twitter handles. Okay, so here's the author, Mr. Kosif, and I'm going to copy his Twitter handle by highlighting it, right-clicking, copy, and then I'm going to go back to the story and I'm going to paste him in right there. Now I've still got 26 left. Actually, I've got a little extra space in here So I'm going to get rid of that, and I just picked up another character. All right, space. Now I'm going to put in the Chancellor here. And I'm going to copy this and paste him in here too. Now we've got 11 left, okay? And that's reasonable. I'm perfectly okay with sending this out with this many. But here's what's important here. It's very unlikely that Chancellor Harris actually looks at all of his own Twitter stuff. There's somebody in his office that's specifically their social media specialist, and they're on the staff there to follow what's going on with social media. So they're probably checking this out. So when I tweet this out and it's got him in here, then they're going to save it. They may retweet it, they may favorite it, and that's all good for me. The more traffic that I generate through retweets and through favoriting, the better, because that actually enhances my social media status. So here's what we've got with Buffer. Now, I should tell you that Buffer will post to me. I have my Buffer set up with my Twitter handle, Lawrence G. Miller, but I could also post it on Facebook or on LinkedIn or some other things. At this point, I don't really do that here, but I'm going to show you something. Here's something that you can do where I'm going to highlight the whole thing and then copy it. Okay, now it's in my clipboard right now. So what I'm ready to do, I'm ready to add this to my Buffer queue, and I'll show you how this works. Okay, there it goes. But see this up here? Go to Buffer. I just clicked on that, and this shows me that tomorrow I already have 3 tweets in my Buffer queue. This is the last one that I just added right here. Now the beauty of Buffer is it lets you set schedule times. Now I should tell you that Buffer will do more if you pay them a subscription service. I do not pay them. So what I get is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tweets a day that I can schedule. I have these scheduled to go from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. my time. And that's all I need right there. With Buffer, I'm going to fill up my Buffer queue for the day. Right now I've got 3, and that means I can add 2 more. Let me show you also that Buffer has an analytic component, and we'll come back to this later. But I can go back and I can see what I've tweeted today. And for example, this particular one got retweeted and favorited, and it actually shows me some kind of a index of the power of this particular message that went out. So that's good. Here's another one that got some traction out there. This got some traction. So any of these numbers that show up, that's all good stuff for you. Back to content here. Again, I'm using this for Twitter. Let's go ahead though and look at this button, because in addition to doing 5 tweets on Buffer tomorrow, I can also set it up so I can do 1 LinkedIn. And right now it's telling me that I don't have anything in my queue specifically for LinkedIn. But you know what? Remember how we copied and we had that on our clipboard from the last tweet on the California Community College portal? I'm going to paste it in there. Okay, so now this is ready to go. It's the same story. It's the same content. I'm using the same hashtags. LinkedIn really doesn't use hashtags in the same way that Twitter does or even Facebook, but that's okay. People know what these are. And the other thing that's cool on the LinkedIn side is it actually goes and it gets the preview down here and puts it in to where it's actually got an image here. So it makes it a little more attractive. This is going to show up on my LinkedIn tomorrow when I click that. Well, it may actually go out today. I forgot what time I have this set for, but that's all right. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I've got my content for Twitter. I've got my content for LinkedIn. Same message. I could set up a few more, but Buffer doesn't give you everything you want. That's why it's not the only one I use.